我哋個 seminar 咧就差唔多開始㗎啦，因為咧個節目都好豐富啊。咁啊，等我轉一轉 channel 先。Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to Overcoming Eating Disorders, a comprehensive approach. My name is Kelly, and I'm the Vice President of Hong Kong Eating Disorders Association, also known as HEDA. Today we gather here to learn about the adoption of a holistic and multidisciplinary approach to treatment of eating disorders in inpatient and outpatient settings. This seminar serves as a platform for us to exchange ideas, share knowledge, and engage in meaningful discussions that will undoubtedly enrich our understanding of eating disorders. I'm truly excited about the lineup of speakers we have for today, which each bringing a unique perspective and expertise to the table. I'm confident that their insights will inspire us and spark through provoking conversations throughout the day. We have also prepared a folder with some handouts about eating disorders and stages of change. There's also a book, a Chinese version though, about our speaker, the first speaker, Ms. Patricia Kitchener, which is on her own experience of having an eating disorders. If you would like a few more copies, please feel free to contact us after the seminar. So now let me introduce our first speaker, Ms. Patricia Kitchener. She's a psychotherapist specializing in eating disorders, addictions, and relationships therapy. She maintains an international private practice based in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. She has been advisor to HEDA since 2003. Ms. Kitchener has over 30 years of experience in the field of mental health. She's being mentored and supervised by Susan O'Bark, the therapist of former Lady Diana. She also received direct training in New York City by Dr. Harville Hendricks in the Imago Couples Therapy Method and completing a 3-year internship in forensic psychiatry with psychiatrist Dr. Roger Boutin. In addition, Ms. Kitchener has sat on various boards of directors for mental health agencies, including the British Columbia Mental Advisory Committee and networking around eating disorders for 9 years with 2 terms as president. Without further ado, let's welcome our first speaker, Ms. Patricia Kitchener.
I just told her she can't leave me because I don't know how to do anything technical. So, hello? Yes, okay. Good afternoon, can you hear me?
Hardly.
Not very much? You want it more? I just shout. I can talk louder. So I'm really grateful to be asked to speak. I'm grateful mostly because I get to come to Hong Kong again, and I love coming to Hong Kong. And I've come many times to talk about eating disorders. And I have a particular bit that I'm going to talk to you about. I want to tell you let's see if this is better. Yeah? Okay. So I don't know much about eating disorders globally. And so what I want to make sure that you understand is that I'm going to talk to you about acquainting you with the Canadian experience. Okay, so that it's narrow, but I think it's a pretty good experience for most people. So, and again, I'm an outpatient therapist, and I worked very closely with hospitals, very closely with treatment centers. At one time, we thought it was really wise for our patients to not see their outpatient therapist while they were in treatment, because we didn't want them splitting, is what it's called, telling one story over here, another story over there, and having it watered down. We very quickly returned to having the outpatient therapist, so someone like myself, work with the hospital team, and often our patients were released to come and see me, and then what we did was we got together as colleagues to try and find out what was going on with the future. I'm not familiar with this computer, so it might take me a minute to do this. So I'm okay, I got it. In the last 25 years, what I feel, in the last 25 years, there's been what I feel is an unfortunate export of eating disorders from North America, and I'm talking about the United States and Canada, and it's been exported all over the world. And I don't think we're doing anybody any favors by exporting that. And then with social media, it has become even more so. And the spread is not only about eating disorders, but it's even more about body dissatisfaction. At least for us, it's about body dissatisfaction. The highest rates of eating disorders outside of North America are in Asia. In Japan, Singapore, Hong Kong, Korea, who also has the highest of plastic surgery, and then Taiwan. So it's not good news. So now I'm going to try this. So the other thing before I talk very much is I want to make very, very sure that you understand that the Canadian experience is different than the American experience. And part of the reason is because so many people have biases about the American experience, the obesity, they see fat acceptance, that kind of thing. We don't have the same problem as they have, but I'm not saying that we don't have a problem at all. In Canada, when people come from other countries, they're welcomed in, and they're welcome to bring their culture with them. And so we often have enclaves of people. So we have like Chinatown or Little Italy or whatever, and we're supposed to be very, very honoring of that. Okay? Whereas the United States tries to make it, everybody's homogeneous, right? You just get in there and it's a melting pot and you lose your culture. And the problem with that is, if you're losing your culture, you can easily adopt the ideals of the culture you're coming into and not keep any of your old ideals from the culture you bring with you. And so I just want to separate myself from the United States. I think we don't do that. I think that what we do is we honor people coming, and we have a lot of diversity. It gives us a lot. It makes things richer. But you'd think, given that we honor diversity, we also would honor diversity in bodies, but we do not. Okay, we have a standardized body type that people want. Even though we're in that mosaic, you can't conclude that everybody gets to bring their body type, and that's good. Instead, what you do is you try and fit into the culture, and then probably what you do is go home, and then in your homes you use your own culture. I didn't know when I first was doing my slides that you use the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, and so I don't need to say anything about that. We're all on the same page with that. The only problem that I see with the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual is statistics. The problem with statistics is where we get them. right? And if what we're doing for many things, we get them through a healthcare setting. So if you get the statistics from the hospital, what you're doing is you're seeing an eating disorder at a particular time, at a particular phase. You're not seeing the whole spectrum. And so we have these stats about admissions and discharges and how long somebody's going to do something. And the other thing is we often treat somebody, then what we do is we do a follow-up study, maybe 2 years later, by telephone, and think that they're going to tell us the truth. Okay? And if they really like the program they were in, okay, and you ask them, how are you doing? They're going to tell you that they're doing quite well. Thank you very much. Because they don't want to tell you that the program didn't work. So what I believe is, rather than just going after statistics, we look at eating disorders, what we see in the hospital setting or the mental health setting, as the tip of an iceberg. You see that, and as a therapist, seeing your patient, I see the stuff that's underneath. And I get to see all kinds of things that you don't get to see. The other thing is I have the luxury of having an hour for a consultation. I think, probably, I don't know how long do dietitians have for a consultation? 15 or 50? 50, okay. Yours, so I have 15 minutes, 50, okay, and 10 minutes in between. And so it allows me to ask different questions, to build a rapport. It's very different. The other thing to say about that is the tip of the iceberg, okay, is when the patient's really sick. Okay, often I see them prior to them being admitted, so I see them pre-admission, and then I see them post-admission. So I see a spectrum of eating disorders, not just that tiny bit. Well, it's not a tiny bit, really, but... So what you won't be able to see, that I get to see, is attitudes. And these are just a few of them, although you may know them. In Canada, 6-year-old girls appearing in bathing suits. They're scared to put their bathing suits on because they compare themselves to the other little girls. Too fat, too fat. My granddaughter says to me, "Why am I prettier than the other girls, Mama?" And I'm like, oh my. And then she says, "But they tell me my legs are too big." 9-year-olds, 500 school children were surveyed, and 50% of the 9-year-olds thought they were overweight. Yeah. Okay. By 18, 81% of 18-year-olds are on diets. And if they're not on a diet, they've just gone off a diet, or they're going on a diet. So it's a diet culture. Models at one time weighed 23% less than the average woman, and excuse me, no, now they weigh 23% less than the average woman. It used to be 8. What we know statistically is 5% of Canadian women can just naturally attain our ideal of what a woman should look like. And unfortunately, we live above the United States. And we get television from the United States. And we get to see Kardashians. Okay? And yes, the Kardashians. And so then we start to think we might be able to look like the Kardashians. Right? If we have enough plastic surgery and we diet enough and go to the gym enough, it won't be long before we're going to look like the Kardashians. It doesn't work. So for me, for under the iceberg, so I'm just going to read this. Eating disorders and disordered eating are in essence a struggle for identity and a desire for control over one's life. The front of the book, somebody just read it, oh, Kitty read it to me, where Dr. Singh Lee said, eating disorders are living disorders. And I believe that true. There's something going on. The food, of course the medical establishment has to deal with the food and the refeeds and that sort of thing, but there is so much more going on that you don't get to touch. And it's complicated. I rarely see anybody where I don't see some member of their family as well. And I've been known to send a mother back to Hong Kong as what I call a parentectomy, like an appendectomy. Because what often happens is that it's a system that we're dealing with. And so you've got an eating disorder person, but they live in a family system, and usually the next sickest person will be either the mother or the dad. Because of the worry, they have the worry, they don't know how to deal with it, and then they start to get obsessed with all the eating, etc. It's not only a physical disease, which a lot of people in the hospital, you'll all see, but it's very much a mental disease. The other thing is that even if you're dealing with obesity, you can be dealing with starvation and malnutrition, starving themselves part-time and then binging and then starving themselves again. So what I've got two metaphors that I use for people who end up in hospital. And it's not every single patient that's like this. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with coal mining stories, but in the coal mines, it was dangerous gases that used to be, they just would freely be around, and it endangered the lives of the men, largely that were working in the coal mines. So what they would do is get a cage. They put a little teeny canary in the cage. They take it down with them, okay? And then if the canary tipped over, like passed out or was dead, then the fellows knew to take, to get out of there, that there was danger. And so what I say is, often the people that I see, they're like canaries in coal mines. They're very, very sensitive to what's going on, okay? And other people wouldn't even know, so other members of the family are, it's okay, everything's okay, and they're like keeling over like this from all the income. And I'm sorry, I smell my computer. And if that metaphor doesn't work for you, the other metaphor is that of a lightning rod. So I have a patient, an ex-patient, currently, she's here in Hong Kong, and I spent the last couple of days with her. And I used to call her this. I said to her, "You're just a lightning rod." And she's like, "What's a lightning rod?" And so, if you don't know, it's a metal rod that's affixed to a tall structure to divert lightning harmlessly into the ground. So, but if it's person, not lightning, this person, let's just say it's the eating sort of person, attracts a lot of attention and criticism. And especially in order to, they take the attention away from the family problems. And more serious issues. To divert attention away from more serious issues, or to allow a public figure, like their father, say, to be blameless. So this ex-patient of mine told me as recently as yesterday that I could say anything about her I wanted, and that the family had written it off before. So what she was doing as a lightning rod, her dad, they moved to Canada, okay? Part of the time they were the satellite family, so mom's in Canada with the kids, and dad's off in Asia doing whatever deals he's doing. And long story short, Dad had told me that he was losing his business at that time, almost bankrupt, didn't tell his wife. There was a lot of tension around the spending and stuff. Then he thought that his wife, he pulled away from her and she then pulled away from him, and then he thought she was having an affair. And my ex-patient was the one that became the lightning rod for everything that's going on. She didn't know what was going on. She knew that the dad had accused the mother of an affair, but she didn't know what was going on, and she literally would divert the energy away from the family to make it look normal. So you may see somebody who gets a lot of criticism, okay, is clearly your identified patient. You go, this patient is really, really causing problems in this family. And I would say to you, you might want to have a little look under the surface of the water. So there's not a research method, but a phenomenon that we call the 3 Ps. And I don't know if you use the 3 Ps here, where something predisposes somebody to an illness, and then the illness is precipitated by something, and then it's perpetuated by something, and if you're lucky, you're going to get protected by it. And the way in which I use that is, I say it's a cycle. And people are arguing with me. We talk a lot about recovery, and we question recovery in eating disorders. And I've had conversations with the ex-patient and conversations with Angela about whether anybody can be fully recovered from an eating disorder. And I go, nope, they're just somewhere in the loop. Okay. But recovery looks like sometimes, so the dad, in the case of the ex-patient that I was talking about, said to me, can you fix her? Are you going to be able to fix her? And I'm like, can you define fix? And he said, well, can she get recovered? And I said, can you define recovery? And he said, yeah. She has a boyfriend and or a job. I said, I think that we can do. But is she ever going to get over some of her food behaviors? No. She can be relatively normal. So if you look at the beginning, at the top right there, you're looking at predisposing factors. Some of the predisposing factors are if you have family history of eating disorders. So we see multi-generational. Okay. If you were fat as a child and teased about it, and that's not going to happen right then, it's going to happen later. But the other predisposing factor is the culture that you live in. Okay? Because if it's a culture of thinness, admiring beauty standards that are unreasonable, we're going to just go around a little bit. Then we have the precipitating events. What triggers it? So what triggers an eating disorder? The biggest trigger for an eating disorder is puberty, the onset of puberty. My belief is it's because women's bodies change radically at that time. And I've tried to have conversations. I had a conversation last night it was with the ex-patient and her fiance. And I said to him, what was puberty like for you? He went, I'm Chinese. It was, I didn't get that hairy, right? Whereas, sometimes people will be real dark and they'll get real hairy and they have to shave all the time. And so the ex-patient was saying to me, for her, she said she put on weight just prior to puberty. And what we call it like being like a fire plug, that women's bodies or young girls' bodies change, and they just get real thick. I've seen your fire hydrants here. It looks like that. They're just kind of rectangular looking. So there was that. And then she got pubic hair, so she went to her mother to talk to her mother about her pubic hair, and her mother shocked and turned out of the room, never spoke to her about it again. Right? So here you are, your body's changing like crazy. You don't know what's size it's going to be, or how big your chest is going to be, or whether you want to have your chest be big, or and how much hair you're going to have. It's not unusual for girls at that stage to remove their hair. Pluck it, to shave it. And people often attribute that and something else to that they don't want to grow up. I don't think it's necessarily that they don't want to grow up. I think what it is they don't know what's happening in their bodies. They don't have enough information to know what's happening in their bodies. There's other societies where they absolutely praise when somebody's going through puberty, right? And it's a big party and everybody knows, and it's, whereas for this patient and many of my patients, it was hidden. So it's a difficult time. The other thing that can, in the precipitating, that is highly likely is when somebody moves away to school. So they go away to university, and you've heard of the Frosh 15, so the freshman 15, they go away to school, they eat differently, and they gain weight, right? Another one is the first boyfriend. So the first boy, you get dumped by the first boyfriend, and you find your face in a bag of potato chips. So then we go, and it's reinforced, I've got perpetuating over here. I'm going to talk about this a lot. It's perpetuating, what keeps it going, right? Okay, and then sometimes what happens is you get it and you're doing pretty good. You're maybe holding your weight steady and your eating is not that off, but and then you'll have some kind of a crisis. I see the revolving door a lot when somebody calls me. Okay, they've gone away, they're doing okay, they're eating, they're maintaining their weight, okay, and then they decide to get married. The phone rings. Can I come back to therapy? Okay. Or they divorce. Or an eating disorder woman has a baby. She's having a baby. And she's like, oh, I feel like, I don't know, something's inside of me and it's eating me up, or it's taking me over, and I don't think I can do this, and then I have to take care of it afterwards. And you usually don't see that in the general population. So one of the perpetuating things is a beauty ideal. So these are a group of Canadian women, all of whom weigh 154 pounds. Okay. And we have a culture that tells all these Canadian women that in spite of the fact that some of them are tall and some of them are short and some of them are whatever, they can look like supermodels. And we've created industries to help them get to be supermodels. It's a setup, a cultural setup. So, young girls in Canada are more afraid of becoming fat than they are of cancer. They're more afraid of becoming fat than they are of nuclear war. They're more afraid of becoming fat, this is the sad part, than they are of losing their parents. Now you could say, okay, well they don't know about nuclear war, they don't know about their parents, they don't know about the death of their parents, but they've heard enough. What this is saying, that's how scared they are of fat. Before the onset of puberty, there's no difference in the depression rates between boys and girls. So eating disorders, even though it's moved into young boys and young men, still there's a preponderance of it of women, and it makes me feel like I want to know why. Why is it so hard on women? Why is it women? I mean, are the industries targeting women specifically? Does everybody on the planet hate women? I don't think. But for me, there's a mystery. I want somebody to do their PhD on that. And I want them to send me the results, because I want to know why. Why women? You know, it makes me think of some of the battles in the Arab states in the Middle East, where women can't go to school. It's like some kind of backwards kind of thing. I don't know what it is. Some of you may know much better than me. So I'm going to take you on a little trip on what's going on in the Canadian culture. So we've got, I don't know, maybe 10 primary industries dedicated to the lie that you can have any body and any face at any weight that you want. But you just have to buy our products or do our exercise. So we begin. Again, the ex-patient told me this. She has a 12 and a 14-year-old niece. They spend 8,000 Canadian dollars a month on Sephora. Do you know what Sephora is? And I'm like, how can you spend 1,000 Canadian dollars a month? She said, well, you know, eyeshadow colors change, and then the lipstick is on for spring, and then they get a new, you know, get a skincare. And those kids have bought into it. They believe it. And they're 12 and 14. So the money's coming from somewhere, and if they don't, like in Canada, 12 and 14-year-olds don't have a job, so the parents are giving it to them. So the parents are in, and the kids are in, and they're all buying in, and if they get beautiful enough, I don't know what's going to happen, but certainly they're going to have a lot of makeup. Okay? Our cosmetic industry is worth $10.7 billion. And my belief is they changed the colors in the lipstick and stuff so that you can buy next spring's lipstick and then you don't use the rest of your other lipstick. So, all right. Often we let children play with makeup. I have pictures. I have 3 granddaughters. They used to play in my closet. I let them play in my makeup. I didn't for a second think I harmed them. I do have one, I must tell you, I do have one that said, Mommy, why am I so pretty? And the other girls aren't, but my legs are fat. She teaches herself on YouTube how to do makeup. But what you won't know is this innocence is no longer innocent because 4-year-olds are playing with iPhones. And there are apps where the algorithm is targeted at 4 to 10-year-olds. And it's for plastic surgery. It's for lip fillers. Okay, and fillers in here. And they're playing on the phone, changing the faces of them. They think it's normal. I mean, I've heard that there are girls in Canada who ask for plastic surgery for graduation at the end of grade 12. Mom and Dad, let's say Mom and Dad don't have, you know, they've got a lot of money. Mom and Dad, I don't want a car. I want a nose job. Or we call it a boob job. Okay, so if you're not gonna get pretty using all that makeup, and really you should go to the tutorials and pluck your eyebrows and do whatever you need to do. But if you're not going to do that, we have another industry for you that'll help you, and that is the slimming, dieting, weight loss, weight management, fitness industries. So you try the one diet, the keto diet, or you try the South Beach diet, or the Atkins diet, or the whatever diet, and ultimately all diets fail at about 98% within a 5-year period. So nothing on the book says you're going to fail within 5 years. It doesn't say that. It makes you think you failed, not the diet failed you. And then now we've got a whole bunch of eat this food, eat that food, eat whatever food. Okay, and there's different categories coming with eating disorders because of that. We have a national chain of gyms, okay? And it's quite a, originally it was a men's gym, you know, really muscle building gyms, but it has changed its mind, and recently what happened is it put out this advertisement. And the advertisement was meant to, I don't know if you see the same thing in it that I see it, but in there, that advertisement said, when it says, this is no shape for a girl, it's saying, if your portions aren't completely proportionate to one another, so you're bigger on the top or smaller on the top or whatever, they're claiming that by going to their gym, you can change that. I showed the presentation again to the ex-patient, and she said, well, I think you can. I think you can. And I'm like, you think somebody that's pear-shaped can do that? And she said, yeah, with enough diet and exercise, I think you can. And I said to her, and that lets me know that my theory about eating disorders is accurate, because nobody ever really gets over it. So, this is another industry that we have. It's the beauty industry. And what happens here is we have these contestants called toddlers and tiaras. And the mothers are rabid that their daughter is going to win. And these kids have their teeth capped, have hair extensions, spray tans, okay, and then they teach them. Okay, and that's the same little girl on both those pictures there. She hasn't got hair extensions in. 4 years old. And there's, we have gymnastics competitions, we have cheer. My granddaughter did cheer. We went all the way to Florida to watch these kids get thrown in the air like that. And, you know, and pose like that. Anyway, it was awful, actually. For me, they looked like hookers. I don't know if you know what a hooker is. It was awful, but, okay, so, you know, there was a time, like when I grew up, there was a time when you were supposed to be kind of sexy and attractive, like to get a man. Okay, but it was a discrete period of time. I mean, maybe from the time you're 16 to 30 at the outside, right? But now you have to be 4 or 81. 81. Martha Stewart. She's American, not Canadian. We don't want her. And I get told that's photoshopped. Okay. I mean, I don't know how to Photoshop, but it still is putting a message out that at 81 years old, you should be able to wear a bathing suit like that and look like that. Jumping out of the water like this. She used to be the North American icon for, you know, place settings and household things and raising goats and flowers on the table, and now she's sexy at 81. I almost wrote to her after she did that. No, I was going to write to her. I figured I could get the address, and I was going to tell her that she was, A, going to make some women sick because they'll lie, but that she was betraying reality. It's not okay. I have no idea if she has an eating disorder. I know that she had Snoop Dogg on her program and they smoked dope together. She's also not somebody that kids should be looking up to. So that's Miss Martha. And I thought, well, maybe it's better in Asia. Surely it's better. You're smarter than us. Right? No, you've got the kids in the beauty pageants too. So it's there's no more borders. And social media puts you firmly in the category. And what are we doing with young girls? What are we teaching them? And if we don't teach it to them, and you just give them access to an iPhone, then what happens? And they maybe want it themselves, or maybe their little friend wants it. But it's definitely a cultural thing. So this. Okay. I don't know how many of you ever saw The Wizard of Oz. Okay. This is the guy that played, I think, the Tin Man. Didn't he play? The Cowardly Lion. Yeah, he played the Cowardly Lion in The Wizard of Oz. And so he's a celebrity. So they got him to do this commercial. And in this commercial, he's pretending like he's the devil, and he's tempting you to eat just one Lay's potato chip. I dare you to eat one Lay's potato chip. To try and battle off temptation. The companies that make, this is another industry, the companies that make packaged food in Canada and the United States have figured out a chemical composition that strives to stimulate what's called the bliss point. And the bliss point stimulates your taste buds, but it does nothing for hunger. So what happens when it stimulates your bliss point, you get a figure, I mean, what the research says is you get a hit of dopamine. So not only does it taste good and smell good and crackle the way you want, okay, but it also tells you to get more. Get some more. And what I say is, because it doesn't deal anything with hunger, what happens is you get an apple, let's say, really good apple, okay, but because your hunger is satisfied, you don't want a bag of apples, like a whole bag of apples. So you eat another apple, another apple. Even my bulimics don't eat another apple, another apple, another apple, another apple. No, they'll go get the chocolate chips or something. By the way, they've got chemical compositions put in chocolate as well. So what they're doing is they're creating an industry where you can't say no, where it's really difficult. Did you know that McDonald's puts sugar in its French fries? Yeah. Have for 20 years. Why do you think 3-year-olds want McDonald's? French fries that probably don't even have potato in them. They just make them think that it's in string cheese. Pack your kid string cheese in its lunch. They formulated it to see so it's got some of the bliss point in it. I think it's criminal. I think it's like the cigarette industry. You know, when they figured out that it was, I think it's nicotine that carries, that you become addicted to. So the packaged food industry, so it said, this one, this particular ad, I took them off the internet, and I'm a terrible, like I'm not a professional give speecher, so you can see Visit or whatever, but I just took pictures off the internet. But part of that ad, where it says advantage and chunky soup and fruit and whatever the other, they're advertised as health food. These are healthy foods. We've got a soup company in Canada called Campbell's that's out of Winnipeg, Manitoba. And when they asked Campbell's to reduce the salt in their soup, they said, nobody will buy it. Nobody will eat it. And so, no, we're not doing it. And it stayed just at that. And then I think to myself, when I eat Campbell's soup, you know what I do? I put crackers in it, the ones with the salted tops. So I just top it up. I top it up because it does something. And often when I make soup, often if I'm not feeling well, and then I think, oh, I feel better, or at least my mouth does. Because it's sitting back. other ones are, oh, yogurt and all the non-fat stuff. So the fat gets replaced with many times with sugar. And then people don't know why they don't lose weight when they quit drinking Coke and they go with Diet Coke. Another industry that's supporting people being really unhappy with their bodies is the fashion industry. And I don't know how clear that slide is, but it looks to me like you can see her ribs. Do you see her ribs? In 2023, the hottest fashion runway trend was skinny. Skinnier, the model. I don't know what the name of that model is, but that's skinny. And the skinnier they were, I have a friend whose daughter models in Milan, and she's 5'11", and when she went away, her weight was relatively normal, but what she's learned over time with the other models is how to keep her weight down. So I thought, again, let's see what's happening in Asia. Because it can't be as bad as here. On the top left is the paper challenge. So that's an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. And if you can if the paper can go to here, and you're not wider than that, you've met the challenge. And then there's the one where you take a bill and it can go around your wrist. And then there's it's called the coin challenge, and it's the bone in here, because I'm not a medical person, I don't know what this bone is. Somebody tell me what that bone is right there. If that's the collarbone, right here. Okay. So they put coins, and the deal is to see how many coins you can get to stay still in your collarbone. And then you take your phone out, and what you do is you put it on your knees, and as long as your knees aren't bigger than the phone, you're good. Okay? The other one is the belly button one. And I don't know anybody that can do this. You have to put your hand around your back and reach and put your fingers to your belly button. Yeah. And then you met the challenge. Okay, that gives me a murmur. So you know something about this. Did you know about this already? Do you try it? Do you think, does it feel silly? But do you know people who can do it? Yeah? What about the acceptable thigh gap? You have to be able to put both your hands around your thighs. Both your hands around one thigh. And if you have a big gap in the middle, acceptable. Your body's acceptable. You're slim enough. And if you don't, well then you're fat. And your friends will tell you you're fat because your thighs touch. Just a closer up picture. So I think we exported that to you. And I feel like I should be apologizing as a Canadian that we did that. And I understand that it's social media and that it probably has very little to do with me. But what I'm telling you is that the other thing is that none of us are immune to it. None of us are immune to it. Anybody color their hair? Shave your legs? Get your nails done? We're participating, right? And I think we don't know where the place is that's healthy and not healthy. And so I saw this, apparently it's Korean, but I thought, oh, now you're going for homogeneity too. Right? Everybody's going to look the same. Okay, they're all going to dress the same. What's really interesting to me is kids in puberty really want to be different. They want to have an identity and they want to be different. And then they all end up looking the same, and then somebody changes it, right? But it's this search for identity. And there's an even more cruel thing that goes on for us. You've heard of Ozempic. So Ozempic is a drug that was manufactured to help people with, I believe it's type 2 diabetes, to manage their sugar levels. And they found after not very long that it also cut their appetite. And so what happens is people decided that they wanted Ozempic so that they could lose weight. And they had a run on Ozempic, and the people who, for diabetes, they couldn't get their product. Because Kim Kardashian had to wear that dress that Marilyn Monroe wore at the gala. Have you seen a picture of Kim Kardashian lately? Any of you know who that is? Skeletal. Her legs are skeletal. So there's more than just two drugs. There's Ozempic, Wegovy. What I'm saying is we have a culture that's telling us we can do one thing. Okay, and then we have industries that are telling us they'll help us do that thing. Okay, and then we get a bigger problem because we now this is still working. It's not still working. Oh, there it is. Then we have a culture where you want to improve it even more, or you regain the weight or whatever, and then round and round it goes. And the culture, they make huge profits over the commodification of bodies. So a body now has become a commodity. It's malleable. And this is part of what I see, and why I see people who come back, who've been in treatment, who come to see me, and they feel like they've failed. But they're up against all these pressures to be a certain way. And obviously, puberty's not the only predisposing factor, but can you see if you can fix it? It just feels like it's
I don't know.
Clearly, puberty is not the only thing, and I'm sure it's not the most common thing that you see in eating disorders here. But I don't know how many people you're treating that aren't adolescents. I've had somebody as old as 55. She had an eating disorder probably since her teens, and every time something bad happens to her, she reverts to the eating disorder. So I often talk to them about it. Your eating disorder is in remission as long as you manage it. And it's a bit like diabetes, so you do the things that you need to do and take care of yourself. Often your eating disorder is not there. But if what happens is something bad happens for you, often that is a way that you'll deal with it. So again, for me, eating disorders or disordered eating are a pattern of feelings and behaviors that is not about food. It's a coping strategy for feelings. Feelings of powerlessness, and that serve a unique purpose to every individual. So if you're going to be treating it, what you want to know is what's the purpose? What is the purpose of this? You know, PETA is going to own this material because I'm on the board, and when I do something like this, what I say belongs to them. So if If any of you want these slides, okay, maybe somebody could ask Hedda, and maybe they would shoot them to you, because I'm happy for those of you who are trying to write this down and you can't do it. Most often you'll see that it's a lack of control. A lack of control of when somebody gets a bad diagnosis, a lack of control of what's happening in your marriage, a lack of control about COVID when it happened, a lack of control about you move and you're, for a girl in grade 7, her best friend leaves and she doesn't have any friends. There's a sense of powerlessness, which undermines self-esteem and a sense of self-worth. And what's really interesting is when you talk to somebody who thinks that the power of being skinny is the best power you can possibly have. Right? That's the best. They're like, and what we used to do at the clinic, so I would send somebody and they go to St. Paul's, which was the big hospital, and I'd said, they're seeing me in psych therapy. They have not yet needed to be admitted. And we're going to have them go to Tuesday morning group to see about being assessed to take in. And 2 weeks in, okay, they've been sitting in that hall for 2 weeks doing their assessment. And they're back to me, and now they have learned new ways of being in an eating disorder. Because even though it's secretive, it's catchy. I think it's an opportunistic coping strategy which takes advantage of the pervading individual, familial, and cultural values and the normative standard for thinness, societal preoccupation with body image, fat phobia, and obesity. And I'm gonna end just this piece. It's just this one portion. Again, we're having a conversation with the ex-patient. And she says to me, well, I think eating disorders are better than obesity in America. And I think I may have said this at the beginning. I said to her, I think that's kind of indicated that your eating disorder is kind of alive and well and just in the background of what's going on. Not that I think people should be obese, because that's a whole other ballgame. It's a whole other thing for us. So I'm going to give you one particular case presentation, and then what I'm going to do after that, if I have enough time, I'll talk about the other case. So, and just like I'm not good with technology, I'm not that great with finding pictures, old pictures in particular. So this is you each got a book, and the book is parts of the story of my eating disorder. So I'm going to talk to you about that. So, oh shoot, that's a second. We had 3 generations of eating disorders. Having somebody had an eating disorder also is a predisposition. So if you look at the picture on the left, that's my mother. Thank you. Okay, with the dog. There's a dog. There's a Chihuahua dog in there. Okay. She, if you could see, she did do the collarbone challenge. She was anorexic most of her life, and this is a good picture of her. Behind her is my older sister, and my older sister is 7 years older than me. The reason they only had 1 child, at least we were told, it was because the war was on. When the war was over, my dad asked my mother, he said he'd like to have another child. She was horrified because she didn't want to get fat again, because she's active anorexic there, right? She told me during one of my pregnancies where I gained a lot of weight, that what she had done was she managed her weight with coffee and cigarettes. So she kept her weight down for the first pregnancy. She was not wanting to do a second one. However, my dad, I don't know, convinced her somehow, and she relented, and I was the product. So I'm the one in the dark sweater up the top. And then my dad, apparently he was running the house most of the time because he missed her to have another child. I have a hunch they wanted a boy, okay? And when they didn't get a boy, when they got me, they thought, well, we'll just have one more, just try. So, and they often said, you were supposed to be Daddy's boy. Right? You don't tell a kid that, but I'm like, I don't think I'm a boy. I did try standing up to go to the bathroom, like, to urinate. You know, maybe I was a boy. I didn't know what the parts looked like. So, anyway, this woman, I never saw her eat. She cooked, which is very common for somebody who's got anorexia, cooks for others, but does not eat. Never sat at the table with us, but she had a purse. And you weren't allowed to go in her purse. The reason you weren't allowed to go in her purse, because I did go in her purse, okay? I had to go in her purse, she said I couldn't go in her purse. And in there was a chocolate bar, always a chocolate bar. And you could see, I'll just show you, you could see her reaching for her purse, snap. And then she put a little bit of chocolate in her mouth and suck it for as long as possible. Didn't want to eat. So my younger sister is born 20 months after me, and then we move along, and I'm on the right. That's my older sister and my younger sister. And because I was 20 months younger than, or older than my sister, I was always called the big one. So I was big, and I was supposed to be a boy. That's a setup for having an eating disorder, because you do not know what's going on. And then I have an older sister. Can you see that she's kind of chunky? Are you able to see that? Like that's, and she had, her body proportion was very, very tiny on the top and real thick here. Jawed first, kind of. And she was not very popular. She was very, very shy because of her weight. And she, by the time, so I'm born, she's 7. They bring me home from the hospital. She has a full-on tantrum, lays on the floor, kicks her arms and legs, and says, take her back, take her back, take her back, I hate her, take her back. Right? And my mother was having a hard time having 2 children and didn't know how to manage the whole thing between having a new baby and her. And so she used to put my sister in charge of feeding me as soon as she could. My sister told me much later that she just hated doing that, so she'd shove the bottle in my mouth, and I better suck real hard because she wasn't staying long and it was coming out. But the awful thing is that my older sister had been normal weight until probably a year and a half after I arrived. So my guess is my mother was using food to quiet her, because she couldn't go to the grocery store herself, so somebody was feeding her. Okay? Then you see myself with my father. You can't tell that he's a big man. He was 6'2", 6'3", and my younger sister and myself. And nobody told us that I looked like the gene pool of my father. And my mother, it's like she used to look at me like, how big are you going to actually get? Like, how tall are you actually going to get? And I was blonde, and my mother was dark. So this is the backyard, and this is like what I think is innocent bathing beauties. I'm the second on the left, posing, and that cousin on the left of me is 2 years older than me, so I was definitely tall. Okay, and then another cousin, there's my sister. And they took pictures all the time, and they put me underneath their chin. And then they'd say, you see, you're the big one, you're big, okay? And your sister's little, and she's Carolee, and she's the baby. And you can't hurt the baby, right? Don't hurt the baby. I mean, to give my mother credit, she did the best she could do, but she didn't know how to put siblings together. And this is a picture on the right-hand side of myself and my mother, and I don't know if you can see that I'm a full head taller than her. She really didn't know where this came from other than my father's family, and it was strange to her to have a daughter that big, and strange to her that I can remember one time asking her for a coat for it was winter, and I said, Mom, I need a new coat. And she said, what do you mean you need a new coat? You got a new coat last year. And I said, well, the coat doesn't fit. She said, do you know how long it's been since I had a new coat? And inside my head, I'm thinking, you're not still growing. Okay. So, what happens to girls like that? So, this is me in a big dress. Okay. By then, I'm bulimic. Okay. Kind of normal weight, but bulimic. That's my husband. And beside me is my sister, the model. And she, at that point, is anorexic. Skip a few years, and we're at the wedding of my older sister, that's 7 years older than me. She's on the right. She's a nursing professor, and she's obese. Her 2 sons, myself, and now my anorexic sister, model sister, is obese. Going. This is the wedding. 3rd generation now. That's my niece, my older sister's daughter. For her wedding, she dieted down to be very, very thin, okay? And my sister had to wear a dress that she had made. This is the model in the red shirt. That's the model, the anorexic model. So we all ended up with different eating disorders. That's sad enough. Then my niece, after her first baby, she was just like my mother. She did not want to be thought of as having had any weight on her. Second baby, same thing. She was not gaining any weight. And now, you can find her on Instagram. She's a beauty influencer. And she teaches intuitive eating. Now she's fit. If you saw her on the street, you'd probably think lucky. If that young woman doesn't work out for an hour and a half every day, she feels crazy. We're at 5 minutes? So, I didn't know exactly what the audience was going to be. So I prepared, or I sent along to Hedda, and they prepared generously for you, some handouts. And in the handouts package, it's just diagnostic information from the DSM. But I didn't know if you all had access to that. But the most important thing, if you can find the sheet, there's a sheet I want to show you because the most success I've had with eating disorders is by using motivational interviewing. Okay, so you're interviewing for what the motivation of the person is. In order to be able to do that, you need to connect with that person. And what I'd like you to know and pass on is, if you see them in the pre-contemplation phase, they'll tell you there's nothing the matter with what they're doing. If you see them in the contemplation stage, you may have used CBT or cognitive behavioral therapy, and you get to them a place where they're going, oh, maybe this is a problem. Yeah, it's kind of a problem for me. And they start to think about it. And then they'll get a preparation phase where they'll think, okay, maybe I can do something about this. But nobody gives any of these people credit for those 3 stages. What they give them credit for is the action phase, where they're actually putting some weight on or taking weight off or taking care of themselves. So I would beg you to try and know that these other stages are important as well, and your connection with them is important. And then maintenance. Okay. And by relapse, I don't mean somebody's back in the hospital. I just mean they're visiting their eating disorder again. And as long as they've got the skills, well, they can go back and take care of themselves again. So I left you with that, and there's a therapist, Prochaska and De Clemente, who did the stages of change for behavior change. And I first adapted it for addictions, and then I've adapted it for eating disorders, and it's in the package, and it even has what you can say to them. So at different stages it says, this might be something for you to try saying. Remember, your connection with them is one of the most vital things for them to be heard and to know that you're listening. And you know, you may have ideas in your mind of what they can do. Like, well, you could, if you're a dietitian, you could eat this, you could eat that, do whatever. What I say is, let them try what they think. Okay, and then the other thing is, what's going to work is whatever they'll do. So you may come up with all kinds of strategies for what they're going to do, but if they won't do it, it's not going to work. So, you're done, right? 5 minutes. I want to thank all the staff of HEDA, because I could not have done this. I am so machine phobic. Right? I was in bed going, oh my God, what if I lose all my slides? And I thought I could probably talk for 4 days. Thank you for listening. Thank you for having me.